Good evening. Governor Abbott's plane landed a little bit late. He'll be here in just a few moments. We'll be getting started, but in the meantime, we want to say welcome. We're glad that you're here, and we're going to ask you to do us a favor. For those of you who are seated in the far back, if we can go ahead and fill in these front rows. And so while we've got a couple moments before we start, we're going to ask you to slide up and let's fill in the spaces at the front. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Temple Christian School. It is my great honor to welcome you here tonight. My name is Doug Reif. I have the privilege of serving as the pastor of this church and the president of this school. And we say boldly tonight on this hill that we are grateful for Governor Abbott's efforts to empower parents because we believe that vision is near to the heart of our Creator. This might surprise you to hear from a pastor tonight, but I actually believe that the greatest institution in the world is not the church. It's not the school. It's not the political system. The original institution ordained by God has been and always will be the home. Families just like yours. A biblical worldview informs us that empowering parents is not first a political ideal. It is a human ideal, and it is a holy ideal. And so, Governor Abbott, we honor your efforts to empower parents in this great state, and it is our joy to welcome you tonight to Temple Christian School. We also extend a warm welcome and gratitude to the elected officials who are here as our special guests this evening. Senator Kelly Hancock, Representative Giovanni Capriglione, Representative David Cook, Representative David Lowe, Representative John McQueenie, and Representative Tony Tinderholt, and to any of our other elected officials on the state and local level who have joined us tonight, we say thank you for being here for this great cause. We begin tonight by acknowledging the presence of our Creator through a word of prayer that will be led by one of our students, our 12th grade class chaplain, Ethan Reif. We will then be led in the pledges to the American and Texas flags by elementary students, Nathan Quijano and Sydney Langdon, after which 11th grader Abigail Boer will lead us in the singing of the national anthem. And for all of that, would you please stand and remain standing?
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening first with gratitude. Thank you for all that you have done and will continue to do for this school and for the people you have placed in it. Thank you for the freedom we have to meet on this hill this evening. We thank you for the gift of choice. Thank you that we can choose to worship you and choose to be with you. We thank you for the privilege we have to choose to ask for wisdom in moments like these. Most importantly, we thank you that you chose to send your Son, Jesus Christ, to die for our sins and give us new life through faith in him. We pray this evening for our governor and our elected officials as they seek to put families first. We pray for him and for each of our political leaders who are here tonight. Please protect them and give them wisdom as they continue to lead this great state. We ask with boldness for your blessing on each home and each family that is represented here tonight. May they experience your peace and your good favor as they seek to follow you in their lives and in the way they choose to raise their children to know you and to love you, to serve you, and to lead in their generation. We ask all these things in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen.
Join me in the pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Please join me in the pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Okay, as you guys may be seated, I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to Senator Shatfly. We appreciate you being here as well. Also, we did not want to leave you off the list. We realized we did that. So thank you for your presence here tonight. We are so honored. Good evening. We are honored by your presence tonight. I know there's a lot of places you could be and a lot of things you could do, but we believe we're so honored by your presence tonight as we discuss the importance of empowering families to choose the educational environment that they believe is best for their children. My name is Dr. Andrea Chevalier, and it is my greatest honor to serve as the head of school here at Temple Christian School. Yay, I love our school. Our incredible school community is a family that loves and serves the Lord Jesus Christ. And if you're a guest on our campus tonight, we want to welcome you to be part of our family this evening. So thank you. Last week, as we were preparing for tonight's event, a group of Temple Christian administrators and teachers, we were on the senior trip, which is the famed senior trip that we all love to go. We were with our amazing class of 2025, and I see some of those students in our audience tonight. That's right. And it was just such a profound experience for us as we were walking the streets where our founding fathers once stood and driving past the site of where the first school in America was established in Boston. And I believe it's important to note that this was also the first Christian school, as all schools were Christian schools when our country was first founded. And during this time, we discussed the difficult decisions that our founding fathers made, but we also had lots of really fun jokes, and I'm sure I can get some amens from the students there as we went to the Boston Tea Party, place, and we jokingly threw the tea overboard into the harbor, and we just had such a really fun time about that. But it really helped me that discussion really reminded me of the reality that many of us still face today in all seriousness. We face today with our school taxes. We continue to pay taxes without being able to choose where our children are educated here in the state of Texas, which is in many ways taxation without representation. In the world of social media, some would argue that school choice already exists and that we have that representation. However, for those of us leading private Christian schools, we know this is simply not the truth. We receive the phone calls, we give the tours, and we respond to the parents who desperately want to send their children to Temple Christian, but are unable to do so because their tax dollars are allocated to the local public schools and not to their child's education. For many families, this creates an insurmountable financial barrier, preventing them from accessing the school they believe would best serve their child. At Temple Christian, our families are not all high-income households. Our current student body reflects the diversity of this beautiful community, as 44% of our student body is minority. In fact, many of the neighborhoods surrounding TCS are among the most economically disadvantaged in the entire Metroplex, with high rates of single-parent households. School choice would be a generational game changer for those families. And to me, just thinking about the potential impact of the current legislation before the Texas legislature excites me so much. I know I use that word a lot, but it really does. It excites me because I think about all of those families. I think about all of those students who could benefit from the opportunity to send their child to Temple Christian School. Furthermore, because of the incredible advancements in education today that allow us to better understand how students learn. Research shows that a child's education is not a one-size-fits-all process, and different children learn best in different environments. I've taught in public school, I've taught in private schools, I've taught in homeschool settings, and I've spent many years leading Christian schools. As both a certified teacher and principal in the state of Texas, my experience has proven that students thrive when they are in the right educational environment. as the adults who are responsible for their well-being, it is our duty to fight for educational freedom. If we are truly committed to serving students, how can we deny them the access to the education that best supports their individual needs and gifts? When parents are empowered to make choices and students experience educational freedom, everyone wins. And since I love my school, and I know I'm a little biased because I love Temple Christian, I do believe that Temple Christian offers an education that any parent would choose if they could afford it. But it's not just my perspective. Recent research from the nonpartisan think tank Cardis highlights the significant benefits for graduates of private Protestant and Catholic schools outside of just their academic achievements. Their research shows that such graduates are more likely to value jobs that contribute to the well-being of others. They are more likely to give charitably regardless of their income. They are more likely to volunteer in their communities. And they also report higher levels of life satisfaction. So graduating from a private school is truly life-changing. As part of my work with the Stanley Herzog Foundation, which exists to catalyze and accelerate the development of quality, Christ-centered K-12 education so that families and culture can flourish, I have the wonderful privilege of serving as a leadership coach, helping to coach private Christian school leaders across the nation. And during conversations at those events with school leaders from these other states where school choice has already been implemented, they have reported that competition has only helped schools thrive. These leaders have seen no negative impact on public schools. In fact, some report that public schools are actually performing as well, if not better, than before. The students most positively impacted by school choice have been economically disadvantaged, as wealthier families already had the means to choose the best educational options for their children. These are reports from real school leaders, not assumptions made by people who are not working in a private school environment. Governor Abbott, I believe your efforts to empower parents are both noble and necessary. And our elected officials that are here with us tonight, the same thing. We're so grateful. As of now, 34 states in the United States have implemented school choice, and Texas must follow suit if we want to stay competitive. And we want to provide equal opportunities for all students like these other states have already done. And I also commend all of you for being strong in the face of the backlash that you have received. We're so proud of you and so grateful for all your work on behalf. You are listening to the voices of the majority of voters, and we want school choice. And so that's right. So we want to thank you again for your courage and commitment to this cause. We are so, so incredibly grateful. So at this point, I would like to, I'm honored to call up Representative Tinderholt for the next part of our program.
Hey, thank you for being here tonight. We're super excited. The best part is, if you remember, Martin Luther King Jr. said, it's always the right time to do the right thing. And today is the right time to do the right thing for parents and empowerment and students. Do you agree with me? So if you look historically, our governor wrote today about the Alamo. If you're not aware, in 1836, on this day, was the Battle of the Alamo, and what happened just after that battle happened? The great state of Texas came about, right? This wonderful state that we live in came about because of that battle. And at that battle, if you remember, there was a line drawn. There was a line drawn in the dirt, and they asked which soldiers wanted to stay and fight. And they all came across. Well, guess what happened last week? The bill for school choice in the Texas House was offered, and it takes 76 people to pass the bill, and we had 77 people cross that line immediately last week. I'm thankful to tell you that I think we could get 10 more. And it's because of the hard work of the people behind me and the legislators over here and the families in the room. I want to thank our governor for his diligence and hard work session after session to make this happen. If he hadn't done what he did this last cycle, we wouldn't have this today. So thank you, sir, for what you've done. I'm honored that parents are finally going to be empowered to choose what's best for their children with their tax dollars. You get to choose, and that's the way it should be. Now, I'd like to introduce a good friend of mine, senator that's been elected since 2012, and you probably know him as Kelly Hancock. He's in District 9, but he was also a House member where he was a courageous conservative and has worked hard to make our economy better and to make it more free. Throughout his legislative career, he worked diligently to keep government out of the way of Texas taxpayers. As a consistent advocate for key issues such as property tax reform, education freedom, and border security, Senator Hancock has earned the courageous conservative, a champion of small business, and Lone Star conservative leader. He's a graduate of Baylor. How many people here are Baylor fans? Oh, come on. Hey, here's my favorite part. Before he walked up, I had to make sure that I got the number of years he's been married right. I said, is 37 correct? And he said this month it's 38 to his wonderful, 38. To his wonderful wife, Robin, and his 3 children, Chloe, Skylar, and Harrison. They proudly welcomed their first grandchild in 2018 and are now, we're both old together, the proud grandparents of 6 tiny Texans. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. It has been a while since I've been in here. Robin, if you'll remember, our babysitter for our kids went to Temple Christian, and we came to watch Laura play volleyball in this very gym that we are in today. So we are very connected to Temple Christian. And literally, she is friends with our family today, lives in Fort Worth, and Laura Benish is very, very close to our family. And so it is interesting to be back here. But it is, and I'm kind of a nominally a little unicorn in that I served on local school district in Birdville for 13 years. I was on board of trustees for 13 years. Every single year I was on the board, to this day today, I was for school choice and really always felt like that the best decisions about education were always left to the family, and we needed to do all we could to make sure we allow them to make those decisions, empower them to make those decisions. And so as serving in the House and then serving now in the State Senate, I've gotten to see your speaker today in various ways, and I've been around long enough that developed a friendship with our governor. And I've seen him, like I said, in many different facets, wearing many different hats, as the former Supreme Court Justice who recognizes that we don't need to leave murderers on the street to turn around and murder again, and is promoting bail reform, which we're going to do this session. As the administrator in a crisis, and I got to introduce him last week, talking about the crisis within his life and how it formed him according to Scripture. When you suffer, it breeds perseverance character, and character hope, and talking about how that tragedy that he experienced has allowed him to be a wonderful administrator in a time of crisis, such as border crisis, which we're experiencing, such as winter storm crisis, such as a COVID crisis. And as governor, he has done a stellar job as both the former Supreme Court Justice and that administrator in the midst of a crisis, and knows how to lead through crisis within the state of Texas. And I think I said last week that that's where you shined best. But I was forgetting where he actually shines best. As Audrey's dad, who was probably more involved in the wedding that just took place than any father I've ever known. And the family man the husband to Cecile. Cecilia, and they have a wonderful marriage, wonderful family. And I told him on the way here, as we were traveling here, I said, I knew you were going to do this before you left. And he's running again, thank goodness. But I knew all along that he knew how important it was that as a father, someone who was very involved in education for years, we all know how important education is for the lives of our children. And I jokingly said, being involved in the school district where we had 2,500 employees, I knew many, many teachers. And it's amazing how the teacher's attitude about school choice changes when they become grandparents. Funny, true, when those grandkids are stuck in a school that as teachers they know is not the best school for them. See, as a father, Governor Abbott knows that education's important. As a father, he knows that not every kid is the same. And as our leader, he has led us to this point so that we can empower families, empower parents that are looking for options. And we're not saying public schools are bad. My kids graduated. I love public schools. But there's a reason buffets don't make it very long in society. Every child needs something different. And it may not be right. Maybe you need a smaller environment. Maybe, as for us, that Christian education, as I hear my 6-year-old grandson in his recitation at his private school in Fort Worth, you recognize how important those biblical values are, and you want your kids to grow up with those biblical values. Whatever it is, Audrey's father and our governor understands how important it is to you. And so don't view him as just a governor. View him as a leader of a family that understands the value of education and the importance that we give you the empowerment to do and choose what is best for your kids. And so welcome, if you would, our governor, my friend, Greg Abbott.
Please give it up for your great Senator Kelly Hancock. And to be clear, so everyone knows, the first legislative speaker up here is Representative Tinderholt. Right now, we are in his House district, and he represents some of you where you may live. Some of you may not be in his district. But he made a point that I want to double back on. He talked about how the House just passed this. You got to understand the challenge that brought us to this point. Session after session after session, the Texas Senate has passed school choice only to see it fail in the Texas House. We knew this time we had to get it across the finish line. And the first step to doing that is to file the bill, then to get co-authors. And what Representative Tinderholt was talking about last week, they came up with enough co-authors to have a majority, 77 out of 150. And some of the people who stepped up, Texas House members from this area, join with us tonight. You all deserve to be recognized. They deserve your support and need it. I'm going to call them, and if you would, all please stand and look at the crowd. We got, of course, Representative Tinderholt. We got Representative Cook, Representative McQueenie, Representative Lowe, Representative Schatzline. Think I got them all, but listen, these are powerful advocates for this. These are people who have gone to bat to get school choice passed in the state of Texas. We're going to circle back at the end of our presentations tonight and let you know the essential role that all of you have in this room tonight to ensure that they're able to carry that cause all the way through the conclusion of the session. Because even though they start out with a bill with support of the majority, this is not yet over. They need your support every step of the way to get it done. Now, I want to go back and applaud your leader. Is it president? What's your title? School head? Head of school. Chevalier. I've been to a lot of these, but I've never heard anybody prosecute the case for school choice better than Dr. Chevalier. There's a phrase, a procedural phrase that goes on in the House chamber and stuff like that. Whenever they've heard enough, they're ready to vote on it. It's called call the question. When she was up here, I was about to say, call the question. Let's get it done. That's very, very powerful. And obviously, we're here tonight to talk about school choice, but let me provide that presentation in context. The context is this. The public schools in the state of Texas, they play a pivotal role for our state, educating the overwhelming majority of all students across the state. And I went to public schools my entire life. I began in public schools over in Longview, Texas. Then I went to junior high and high school right over in Duncanville, Texas. And if I could go back and live my life again and choose differently, I would not choose at all differently. I would go to the same public schools that I went to because I had the time of my life, I got the education I needed, that put me on the pathway to be your governor one of these days. And so I am pleased with the public education that I got, and I know that so many other students and parents are pleased with their public schools. And the good news is the public schools in the state of Texas are doing great. Texas has a lot of number one rankings, one of which is Texas ranks number one in the United States for the most blue ribbon public schools of any state in the United States of America. That being said, I want you to know something else, something that is not actually a part of the narrative that people like to talk about. But these are the facts that these members of the legislature are working on. We are going to end this session providing more funding for public education than ever before in the history of our state. We will finish this session with a record high for teacher pay, a record high for per student funding. But we all know this, whether you're involved in government, whether you're involved in running a business, whether you're involved in running a school, or whether you're involved in running a household, you know that more money doesn't solve all the problems. Sometimes different strategies are needed to achieve better results. Well, going back to when I grew up in Longview and Duncanville, when I went to school, we were taught the basics, reading and writing, math and science. But more important than that, perhaps, we learned patriotism. We learned respect for the United States of America that must be instilled in all of our kids. The fact of the matter is that not all schools today educate kids the way that you and I got an education. One example, on my tour around the state, I met a principal at a private school who had been at a public school before, and she told me the reason why she left the public school to go to a private school. She said there was a history teacher there teaching kids to disrespect the flag of our country. Let me tell you something. We're not going to use your taxpayer dollars to teach our kids to hate our country. I met a mother in a different school district who had a special needs student, and that school district was not capable of addressing the special needs of her child. She needed an alternative, but she didn't have the funds for that alternative. I met educators in Athens, Texas. A principal who had been a principal in a public school but went to the private school that I was at over in Athens, Texas. He told a story about his first grade son in public school came home and was saying four-letter cuss word after four-letter cuss word after four-letter cuss word. the dad started writing down those words and showed it to mom when she got home. That night, they knew it was not right for them to keep their child in that first grade class. They couldn't afford it, but they needed to go a different pathway because it was not right to keep that child in that school. They had to find a different choice. Another parent in Athens talked about how her daughter was being bullied. Now, we know that bullying is maybe a common occurrence in schools, but think about perpetual bullying, where a child cannot escape it. And think of a single-parent mom at home, going to work, having to work all day, come home, prepare meals, get her daughter to do homework, and then prepare for bed, and then maybe lying awake in bed, crying herself to sleep, feeling incapable of addressing the fear and harm that her daughter is facing every single day. That mom deserves the right to choose a different school for that daughter. And the most common complaint I hear is parents who are angry about the woke leftist agenda being taught in our schools across the state of Texas. I hate to say it, but this is happening literally across the state. Just a few recent examples. There's a school in Houston where this came up just a couple of weeks ago, where educators at that school, they were involved in transitioning a girl from one sex to another, supporting her in that transition against the will of her parents. If you were the parent of that child, do you think you should have the right to move your child to another school? Absolutely. Let's be clear. Our schools are for educating our kids, not indoctrinating our kids. So what's our goal here? What is our goal? Why are we going through this process? Yeah, absolutely. We want to make sure that all of those parents I talked about, they're going to have a pathway to a different education for their kids. But as governor, I have a larger goal. The larger goal is this. We want kids in Texas to have the best education of any kids in the United States of America. Our goal is singular. The goal against us is singular. They just want more money. What I want is to put us on a pathway to be number one. Think about this concept. Texas is number one in so many things. I told you earlier, we're number one for Blue Ribbon Public Schools. Texas is number one for the most new jobs created in any state in America. We're number one for Tier 1 research universities. We're number one in things like oil and gas. We're number one in cattle and cotton. We're number one in the medical center. Did you know Texas has the largest medical center, not just in the United States, but we have the largest medical center in the entire world. It's time to set our sights on another number one. Texas must be number one in educating our children. But you don't become number one just because you say you want to be number one. You have to have a strategy, and then you have to execute on that strategy. Well, the strategy is pretty simple, and it's not something that we created. It's something that we were able to look at other states that were successful and high-ranked in educating their students, and taking that strategy, putting the Texas version of it, and then implementing. It requires three things. Number one is excellent teachers. Not rocket science. You have to find, fund, and train the best educators. Go back to what I said early on. We're going to finish this session providing an all-time record high for teacher pay raises to make sure we're able to attract the very best teachers. The second requirement is academic excellence. We must reform curriculum to get our kids back to the basics of learning. But going back to also what I said earlier, if you had to decide, okay, there's only one thing that you can teach kids, one thing that kids, when they leave your school, they must have the knowledge of in order to help our state and our country, it would be this. We must remind our kids and educate our kids how 13 colonies were able to combine, form a country, and have that country go on and eclipse all the other countries in the entire world and become the most powerful country ever in the history of the world. And what must be done to preserve and to perpetuate that for generations to come? We need the future leaders who will keep America the #1 country in the entire world. The third and final requirement is empowered parents. Go back to what the pastor said, his very first few comments. The primacy of family among all human beings. And at the apex of that primacy is parents of a child. Parents are a child's first teacher. Government is not in charge of those kids. Parents are in charge of those children. To carry that to its logical end, parents must be empowered to choose the school environment that is best for their child. The way to do that is with school choice. School choice has worked in many other states, as you've heard, more than 30 states it's already worked in. And, little known, it actually has already worked here in Texas. I created Education Savings Account School Choice for special needs students. The legislature liked it so much, a bipartisan supermajority of the legislature passed that program into law and provided more funding to it. Now we need to expand that program to provide every parent the ability to choose the best education option for their child. The fact is that government-mandated schools cannot meet the unique needs of every child. And that's why parents need the choice they deserve. So opponents say school choice is going to destroy our public schools. Just completely false. All you have to do is go look at those more than 30 states where school choice already exists, and you'll see those schools are not failing the public schools. Those schools are succeeding. Let me give you an easy example. I didn't look at the research this past year, but 2 years ago I know this fact. There's a list that comes out every year of the top 100 public high schools in the United States. 2 years ago, at the end of the school year, number 1 was Florida, number 2 was Arizona. What do Florida and Arizona have in common? They're number 1 and number 2 for school choice. School choice is most successful in the states where they have the best public high schools in the United States. Another thing that opponents say, they said, listen, school choice is going to defund public schools. Not only is that false, everyone who says it knows that it's false. The people who are saying it are the people who are trying to hold on to the status quo. They know what the funding strategy is. There's a pot of money that we are setting aside that we're going to use to fully fund our public schools with more money than ever before in the history of the state of Texas. Separate from that, we're going to be spending money to build roads, to build out water projects, to build out power infrastructure, do all the things the state does. And also, in these other pots, we will fund school choice. Not taking a single penny from this pot of public school funding, but using our other funds to ensure school choice will be available in addition to fully funding our schools. Another argument, well, school choice is just for rich people. Well, that's incomprehensible. Rich people already have school choice. This is to help everybody have the chance at school choice. Another issue I cannot emphasize enough, because I got to tell you, as much as I emphasize it, people have a hard time believing it. At one of these events in San Antonio, a woman came up and asked me this question I'm about to tell you, and I told her the answer 5 times, she walked away kind of believing me. So I want to be adamant about something. There are a lot of parents who strongly believe in and provide homeschooling for their kids. Say, we don't want the school choice program because it's going to interrupt my ability to homeschool my kid the way I have been. I could not be more clear. This school choice program will do nothing to anybody who is homeschooling their kid. Secondly, if you want to be a part of the program, homeschoolers can get what will be determined later about how much. They can get some money, but know this, whether you're a homeschooler or a private school like this, the state of Texas and the school choice program is not in any way going to tell a homeschool parent or the head of school, a typical Christian school, that anything about the curriculum or content of what you want to teach. What you're going to teach here, you get to teach here. You decide what's going to be taught at this school, not the state of Texas. One last thing about this that I'll tell you, school choice is extremely popular among every demographic group in the state of Texas. If you're a Democrat, you support school choice. If you're a Republican, you support school choice. If you are an independent, you support school choice. If you are Hispanic, you support school choice. If you're black, you support school choice. If you are Asian, you support school choice. It doesn't matter what demographic group you're in, people in every demographic group support school choice, including urban, suburban, and rural. It's very popular. It's time for everybody to have the chance of school choice in the state of Texas. This is so important. I already declared it an emergency in Texas this session to make sure we get it passed. But here's the deal, where we bring you in. The reason why we're really here. We're here not just to inform you. We're here to enlist you. Because in order to get this done, that requires everybody here to get involved. If I could, let me use a sports metaphor. Think of your favorite sport. It could be football. I see some banners up here. You got track, you got football, you got a bunch of different sports. Here's the point. Many of you have been parents or grandparents or relatives, whatever, watching maybe some of your kids or grandkids or relatives playing on this court. You're on the sidelines and you're cheering them on, rooting them on to victory, feeling that maybe your loud voice may help them win. In reality, the people who will determine the outcome of that game are the kids on the court or on the field. That's not the way politics works. The way politics works is there are people like yourselves and others across the state and country. They cheer on from the sidelines. It could be in seats like what you're in. It could be in your seat when you're watching TV. It could be at a rally. You're cheering. And that cheering is great, but it doesn't move the needle. The difference between sports and politics requires you get out of your seats and get into the game. Politics requires everybody to be in the game because you have just as much of a voice and a vote and a power as anybody else in this state. So we need you actively involved in this, knowing these key facts. Your opinion matters dearly to these House members and every other House member across the state. When you call and say you support school choice, when you email, when you text, when you communicate in any way to their offices, they log that in. They need to have people calling and say, we support school choice, so they know that they have people who have their back. Same thing goes with this concept. There are million-dollar lobbyists who get paid for a living to go knock on their doors and telling them, don't support school choice. We can't have school choice. We've got to maintain our public schools the way they are now, even though that is not actually a true statement the way that it's worded. These million-dollar lobbyists, it's their job all day long to be trying to influence these legislators. We know you don't have all day. We don't need you to have all day. How long does it take you to send a text, an email, to make a call? The truth is, 1, maybe 2 minutes. If you wanted to, you could take a copy of your headmaster's speech and send it to him. That'd be pretty great. Bottom line is we need everybody here to be involved in the real world of politics. Contact your legislator, contact your House member, contact another House member. Let them know where you stand on this. Now listen, I know this should be easy, but the fact of the matter is, when you're trying to change the status quo, it's pretty difficult. It's a big-time challenge. But you know what? I'm up to the challenge. I know what challenges are all about. Because many years ago, when I was 26 years old, I faced a challenge I did not see coming. When I went out for that run, and while I was out running, a huge tree twice as high as the ceiling in this room crashed down under my back, fractured my vertebrae and my spinal cord, leaving me paralyzed instantly and never able to walk again. I could have quit. I could have given up. Could have said, the challenge is simply too big. But I had two things going for me. One, I learned the lesson going through that process of recovery, that our lives are not determined by how we're challenged, but instead how we respond to those challenges. The second thing is I had, by the grace of God, the reality that I grew up and lived in a state like Texas that's filled with limitless opportunity, a state with so much opportunity, a young man's life can literally be broken in half and he can rise up and be governor of this great state. That's what we must all do. We must all rise up and ensure that all of our voices are heard to make sure that our state is on a pathway to being even greater by passing school choice this session. Thank you all. God bless you all. And may God forever bless the great state of Texas. One more quick piece of business. We're so proud of Temple Christian School that I wanted to bring a proclamation from the state of Texas recognizing it for this Parent Empowerment Night. Dr. Chevalier, will you please come up?
Hey, y'all can sit down. I'm Mandy Drogan. I am the campaign director of Next Generation Texas at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. That is a whole lot of words to say. I'm just a mom, and my job is to think about the future for my 3 little kids and for yours. So what does that mean? Well, I think about every day. I think about the first time I held my first child. Do y'all remember that moment? There's this lightning strike of love. You can't describe it until you feel it, but when you do, you know as a parent that your entire purpose in this world has changed. Your purpose is to protect that baby, provide for that baby, and to prepare that baby to launch into the world and reach their full potential. And that is what the parent empowerment movement is all about. When we hear our great governor talk about his vision for the future of Texas, the education of every single child in our great state, we can really break it down into 4 pillars of the parent empowerment movement. And we're going to talk about that today. So what are they? Well, number 1 is transparency. every single parent across the great state of Texas, regardless of where they live, the street they're on, their zip code, the money in their bank account, or any other factor, every parent deserves to know what their child is learning and why they're learning it. Unfortunately, we continue to hear time and time again coming out of our schools, not only are parents not given the transparency into what they're learning, they're seeing things that children are learning and they're very unhappy about it. Things like we're separating children by the color of their hair and the color of their skin to learn lessons about history. We're lining children up on the baselines of the basketball courts to participate in privilege walks. Do y'all know what that is? No? Okay, I'm going to explain it. So what they do is they're lining children up on basketball courts or football fields, and they're saying, we're going to learn about privilege. So, if you have two parents at home, take 2 steps forward. If you have white skin, take 2 steps forward. If your parents have talked to you about going to college, take 2 steps forward. Now turn around, look around. Those are the privileged, this is the underprivileged. Those are the oppressors, this is the oppressed. Those are the victims, this is the victimizers. We are hearing this time and time again. But if you're like me, you grew up going to a public school, and on the wall of my public school, I remember every single year, big laminated poster, Dr. Martin Luther King. And it said, big air bubble, I have a dream that one day my 4 children will live in a country where they are judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. Right? Yep. That's what parents want. The unity that our next generation needs to know. Or how about the highly inappropriate, sexually explicit books that are in our libraries or in our teachers' curated classroom libraries? This is very real, and parents are very frustrated. And that is why the first pillar of the parent empowerment movement is transparency. Every child deserves to know what their child is learning and why they are learning it. The second pillar of the parent empowerment movement is quality. Every child, regardless of where they go to school, the money in their parents' bank account, or where they live, deserves access to a high-quality education. And yet, we know that about 50% of our kids in our classrooms right now cannot read on grade level. 60% cannot do math on grade level. Why? Well, one of the less fun parts of my job is I have to sit and watch a lot of House Public Education hearings. But every now and then, you learn a nugget, and it tells you how and why things are happening, but how we can fix it. Just 2 years ago, we sat and listened as the commissioner of the Texas Education Agency acknowledged that the TEA did an internal audit across all of our public school system and found that just 19% of the curriculum in our classrooms is on grade level. 19%. There is a crisis in our classrooms, and the soft bigotry of low expectations is plaguing far too many of our kids. Every child, every single child deserves access to a high-quality education. So the first pillar is transparency, the second is quality, and the third is respect. Respect for you and for me. Governor Abbott says it best. Mom and Dad are in charge. Yep. And yet, weekly, we are seeing in the news, on social media, in public forums, we have parents showing up, and y'all, they are mad as a striped snake. Their hair is on fire, and they are going at it in that public forum. And I have to remind people time and time again, no parent sets out to destroy their reputation, embarrass their children, and jeopardize their careers. every time it's the same story. Whether it was the mother 2 weeks ago that talked about a child in Houston ISD being transitioned behind the parent's back, here in Dallas where there were chest binders being provided for kids a year ago, whatever it is, mom and dad are showing up. But the same story happens, and this is what happened. Something was going on in their child's classroom. That lightning strike of love that we all felt, mama or daddy felt that and something was wrong. So they went to the teacher and said, "Excuse me, teacher, we have a problem. I don't know if its teacher is teaching in front of a big colorful flag and not the American flag. I don't know if they're teaching inappropriate materials, if an IEP is not being met, or if a child is being bullied to the point of self-harm or suicidal ideation. But every time it's the same. We have a problem, and nothing is done to fix it." So mom or dad, go to the principal. "Excuse me, principal, we have a problem. In the classroom, this is going on, and we need to fix it." And nothing is done. And if you're like the mother that came up to the governor and I at an event in Tyler, Texas, tears rolling down her face, she said, "That's my story. My second grader was in a classroom with inappropriate material. And I went to the teacher, and I went to the principal, and then I went to the superintendent. And he told me if I didn't like it, I could just leave. But I cannot leave without Governor Abbott's education savings accounts. No parent should have to beg and plead to have their child in a high-quality education that is free from indoctrination. And that is why the first pillar is transparency, the second is quality, and the third pillar of the parent empowerment movement is respect. The fourth pillar is choice. Every single parent, regardless of the street they live on, the money in their bank account, the color of their skin, any other factor, every parent must be empowered with the choice of where to send their child to school to get the very best education for their own individual children. And that is why education savings accounts are so vital for every child in Texas. Not only is it going to provide an avenue for the families that need an option, that would love the option to have a Christian-based education, like right here at Temple Christian, or that need to get their child out of a bullying situation. Whatever it is, every parent, regardless of the money in their bank account, must have a choice. And education savings accounts provide that opportunity for every single family. So here's what we need from y'all. Governor Abbott said the quiet parts out loud, but I'm going to say a little more because I can just tell it like it is without any repercussions because I'm not in the Capitol every day. Y'all, those taxpayer-funded lobbyists, I say that because they take your tax dollars, to be clear, $100 million out of Texans' pockets went into taxpayer-funded lobbyist pockets, okay? And they live in Austin. They don't live here in your community. They don't see the struggles of the parents. They live in Austin, Texas, in very fancy, expensive homes, and they wear very nice suits, and they'll bag you lunch, and they'll bring you pastries, and they'll come and they'll say, "Hey, Representative Cook, all those parents that you met last night, don't listen to them. Hey, Representative Lowe, what are you going to do when we sick all the teachers on you? Teach the vote, wink, wink, that's how we do it." That's what these taxpayer-funded lobbyists do. $100 million from you to go and advocate against you. They have weaponized your tax dollars to tell them not to support education savings accounts, not to support education freedom, to not support families who are begging and pleading for other options. Here's why you matter. I will promise you that every single one of these gentlemen are going to stay here tonight and want to meet you. I'll say their names again, and this is why it's really important. You know, we can all remember on the Declaration of Independence, 56 signers that signed the great Declaration of Independence. Obviously, we all know John Hancock, who was big. These gentlemen did something great. They did something amazing. They stood against the tyranny of the majority, and they said, we are going to stand for freedom, and we are going to do what's right, and we are going to put our name as the co-authors for the greatest, strongest, most transformative piece of legislation that our great state has seen in decades. And I say that because if you haven't looked around at the crisis of the culture that we're all witnessing, it is there. And it is time to take back our state, and it is time to take back our country. So when you have an opportunity to come and meet your great legislators, Representative Cook, Representative McQueenie, Representative Lowe, Representative Schatzline, Representative Tinderholt, please come and thank Senator Hancock for already doing what was the right thing to do. Come and tell them, because tomorrow their offices will be inundated with paid lobbyists, and they will be told that they can't do this. But because you are going to tell them they can, because you're going to tell them you support them, you pray for them, and you want to empower parents with school choice, next week on Tuesday, we're going to have the committee that will hear this transformative piece of legislation. Then it will be quickly moved to the floor where these great leaders will stand together, united to empower every parent. And very soon, every single parent in the state of Texas will have freedom. Never in our history has so much been owed to so few as what is going to happen when this vote passes. And when it does, not only are we going to unleash innovation and freedom, but Texas will not only be the most prosperous, but also the freest and the best educated state in the union. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much. This concludes our event tonight. Governor Abbott has graciously agreed to stay and take photos. If you'd like to come meet him, come give your thanks and your support to our representatives who are in the trenches on your behalf. God bless you, and thank you for being here tonight.